When my grandson turned 5, I spent the entire week preparing his party, baking the cake, wrapping the gifts, cleaning the backyard, everything. I thought they'd at least let me sit at the table, but when I walked out with the cupcakes, my daughter-in-law pointed at me and laughed. "Oh, don't mind her. She's just the help." Everyone chuckled. My hands trembled. I looked at my son. He looked away. That was the moment I stopped being their mother and started being a woman with a plan. They thought I lived in their house. I didn't correct them. I just took the deed and walked out. I used to think my life would slow down at 67. After working 35 years as a nurse and burying the love of my life 5 years ago, I thought I'd finally earned some peace. My house, small, creaky, but mine, was filled with memories. The kind that whispered to you through old photo frames and the scent of lemon polish on the banister. But then the stroke happened. It wasn't major, just a brief scare, but enough to shake me. Enough for my son, Brandon, to show up one evening with a worried look and a proposal. "Come live with us, Mom," he said, holding my hand. "It's not safe for you to be alone anymore. Liam misses you. We've got the space now." I hesitated. I was still able-bodied, still driving, still perfectly capable of heating my own soup. But when he said Liam missed me, my grandson, the joy of my Sundays, I melted a little. Maybe it was time. Maybe I'd spent enough time in that old house filled with ghosts. So I moved into their big, airy, suburban home with its granite countertops and polished floors. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, greeted me with open arms. "It's so good to have you here, Mom," she said, her voice sweet as pie. They'd set up a room for me on the main floor, near the kitchen. "For convenience," she said. It had a nice window view and new curtains. The gesture touched me. It felt like a second chance at family. At first, everything felt warm, even if a little rehearsed. We had dinners together. I read to Liam at bedtime. Vanessa would leave sticky notes on my door with cheerful reminders. "Liam's school lunch is in the fridge," or "trash day, thank you." I thought they were just helpful nudges. I didn't mind. I was family. Helping each other was what we did, but soon the nudges turned into assignments. I started waking up earlier, preparing breakfast, packing lunches. No one asked me to. They just stopped doing it themselves. One morning, I slept in and found Vanessa scowling in the kitchen. "Liam can't go to school on an empty stomach," she said, as if I had failed a duty I never agreed to. My days became a rotation of cooking, cleaning, and keeping Liam occupied after school. Vanessa would text, "Can you take Liam for a few hours? I've got Zoom meetings." Or, "Running late. Can you handle dinner tonight?" I said yes every time, hoping it was temporary, hoping I was being helpful, not being used. Vanessa kept calling me Mom, but the warmth faded. Her tone became clipped, her praise mechanical. She made household decisions without so much as a passing comment to me. Changed Liam's daycare without telling me. Rearranged the kitchen. Locked the pantry one night for safety. After 8 p.m., the kitchen lights went out and the door clicked shut. "It's just a new rule," she said when I asked. "We're trying to keep Liam from sneaking snacks. You understand, right?" I nodded. But that night, when I wanted a cup of tea and found myself standing in the dark with no access to the kitchen in the house I lived in, something inside me curled inward. One Saturday, I offered to take Liam to the park, just the two of us. Vanessa hesitated. "Actually, I'd feel more comfortable if we all went together. You know how hyper he gets." She smiled, but her eyes were scanning me, assessing, like I was an employee whose shift just ended but lingered too long. Brandon, my son, said little. He worked from home, always behind his laptop, always saying, "Vanessa handles that," when I asked anything about the household. He didn't fight for me. Didn't even notice, it seemed, how slowly I was being pushed to the margins. I tried talking to him once, gently suggesting that maybe I needed a little more space, more respect. He gave me a tired smile. "Mom, you're overthinking. Vanessa's under a lot of stress." I went back to my room after that. At night, I'd lie awake, wondering how a family could feel so full and so empty at the same time. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was the adjustment period, that Vanessa was just particular, that I had come here out of love, and surely love would hold this house together. But sometimes, when I heard them laughing upstairs without me, I wondered what exactly I had signed up for. Liam's 5th birthday fell on a Saturday in late April. The sun was kind, the breeze soft, and the backyard had been transformed into a balloon-filled wonderland. It was the kind of party little boys dream of. Superhero banners, a rented bounce house, folding chairs in neat rows, and tables stacked with treats. And it was the kind of party only one person had actually prepared for: me. I had been up since Tuesday planning. Vanessa had mentioned the birthday a few weeks ago, but the details had been vague, just a passing, "We should probably do something small." But then, without warning, it turned into a full production. Vanessa had sent out invitations. I wasn't consulted, but I didn't mind. I jumped in anyway. I wanted Liam's day to be perfect. So I baked the cake, a 3-layer vanilla sponge with buttercream frosting, his favorite. I decorated it with tiny edible Avengers, and his name piped across the top in red icing. I blew up balloons, ironed the tablecloths, and even found his old baby photos to hang on a string above the patio. I wrapped his gift, a set of art supplies he'd been eyeing, and tucked a handwritten card inside. The morning of the party, Vanessa was all smiles. "Looks great out there, Mom," she said, sipping her latte as I arranged cupcakes into the shape of the number 5. "Thanks for all your help." Help. That word pricked something deep. Around noon, guests began arriving. Co-workers of Vanessa's, friends of Brandon's, neighbors I didn't recognize. I stood near the back door, wiping my hands on my apron, waiting for someone to pull me into a conversation. They didn't. Some nodded politely. Most ignored me. I glanced at the stack of invitations on the kitchen counter. My name wasn't on the list, not once. Still, I kept moving. There were napkins to refill, drinks to chill. I was halfway through carrying out the birthday cake when it happened. I walked through the sliding door, holding the cake carefully. The candles were lit. The kids squealed in delight. Vanessa, dressed in a flowing summer dress, turned toward her guests and laughed. "Don't mind her, she's just the help." It took a second. Maybe they didn't hear her. Maybe I misheard. But then a few people chuckled. A man in a golf shirt gave me a sympathetic look. One woman actually whispered, "That's her mother-in-law?" As if I were some forgotten relic. I froze mid-step. The candles flickered. My hands shook slightly. I turned to Brandon, who was chatting by the grill. He met my eyes for half a second, then looked away. And Liam, my Liam, stood by the gift table, eyes wide. He looked confused, not angry, just unsure, like he didn't understand why everyone was laughing at Grandma. I placed the cake on the table, quietly lit the candles again, and stepped back into the house. My room was cold, darker than usual. I didn't cry. I just sat down on the edge of the bed, stared at the floor, and let the silence close in around me. My hands were still sticky with frosting. I looked down at my palms like they belonged to someone else. In that silence, memories came crashing in like waves. I saw myself in a hospital bed 35 years ago holding Brandon for the first time. Robert had been there, grinning like a fool. "You're the heart of this family, Margaret," he'd said. "Whatever happens, you hold us together." I still did. And now I was just the help. After the cake was cut and the guests were distracted, I slipped back outside and began cleaning up. Alone. No one noticed. That night, after everyone had gone, I stood at the sink, rinsing out punch bowls when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Karen, an old friend from my nursing days. "Just saw Vanessa's post. Why did she call you the nanny? Thought you were living with them as family?" My fingers froze. I opened Facebook. Vanessa had posted a dozen glossy photos from the party. In one, I was holding Liam's jacket. The caption, "Couldn't have pulled this off without our amazing live-in nanny. Blessed mom support." I scrolled down. Comments poured in. "Where did you find her? She looks so kind. Wish I had one like that." Not mother-in-law, not Margaret, just the help. And suddenly, everything clicked. The locked kitchen, the notes, the avoidance. I wasn't family. I was the convenience, the silent solution, the unpaid labor. I closed the app and stared at the blank wall ahead of me. My heart beat slow, steady, heavy. That was the moment I stopped doubting myself. They hadn't brought me here out of love. They'd brought me here out of need. And I had let them. The next morning, the house was quiet. Vanessa had taken Liam to a birthday party across town, and Brandon was holed up in his office upstairs, headphones on, pretending to work. I stood in the kitchen, pouring myself a cup of coffee, hands still shaky from the night before. My reflection in the microwave door looked like someone I didn't quite recognize. Tired eyes, mouth pressed tight, back slightly hunched like I was bracing for the next blow. I didn't say a word to anyone that day. But I did go into the hallway closet where I kept a metal lockbox. It held my important documents: birth certificate, will, marriage license, and most importantly, the deed to the house. The real house. The one I had lived in for over 30 years, paid off with Robert's pension and my savings. The same house we sold when I moved in with Brandon and Vanessa. When we sold it, we agreed the proceeds would go toward the down payment on their new house. Vanessa insisted on keeping the mortgage low. I agreed to let them use the bulk of the money on one condition: the deed would remain under my name. Just until things settle, Brandon had said. It's easier this way. I'd trusted him, my son. I opened the envelope and stared at the crisp document. My name, still there. No co-owners, no transfers, no signatures except mine. And yet, I remembered Vanessa bragging once during dinner, wine in hand. Well, technically we bought this house. I hadn't corrected her at the time. I just smiled politely. But now, those words echoed like a warning siren. They really believed it was theirs. Later that week, I was folding laundry in the hallway when I heard Vanessa's voice drifting from the patio through the half-open window. She was on the phone, speaking low but clear. No. She's not going anywhere. She can't. The house is stable now. I've got it under control. We just need a little more time before I move things forward. I froze. She laughed. No, she doesn't know anything. Trust me. It's like living with a ghost. I backed away from the window, chest tight, breath caught halfway in my throat. My hands gripped the laundry basket like it could anchor me. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I walked back into my room and shut the door quietly behind me. That night, while cleaning out a drawer in the guest bathroom, I stumbled across a stack of mail shoved in the back. Most were junk, flyers, coupons, but one envelope had my name on it. From my bank, a quarterly statement. I hadn't seen one in months. I tore it open, heart thudding. My retirement account, which had once been comfortably stocked, showed multiple withdrawals, thousands. Over a dozen small transactions, all authorized, all online, all by someone with access to my login. My fingers went cold. I knew I hadn't touched that account. I barely used online banking. But Brandon? He helped me set up my email. He had my password once, just to fix something. I never thought to change it. The next day, I visited the public library under the excuse of wanting to print something. I used one of their computers to log into my account. Every transaction was there, most labeled as loan payments or transfer to joint savings. None of them had anything to do with me. I printed it all, every last page. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a lawyer. Her name was Angela Reyes. She was a friend of a former coworker, someone discreet, and most importantly, someone who had experience in elder financial abuse cases. I met her at a coffee shop across town. She listened as I laid everything out, quietly, carefully, like I was confessing a crime instead of reporting one. She didn't blink, just nodded and said, "This happens more than you'd think." Over the next week, we pulled everything: property records, banking history, old agreements, even digital correspondences. Angela verified what I feared. The house was legally mine, and the funds had been misused. Brandon could be liable. Vanessa had no legal claim. But there was more. Angela had a contact at a local notary office, an old friend of mine named Charlene, who confirmed that 6 months ago, Vanessa had requested pre-filled transfer documents for the property. She had prepared a quitclaim deed with my name and her own, ready to sign, but the paperwork was never submitted because she couldn't forge my signature. I stared at the scanned copy Angela showed me, my name, typed neatly. A blank space for the signature line. They were preparing to take everything, I whispered. Angela looked at me calmly, and they almost did. When I returned home that evening, I sat in the living room while the family ate dinner upstairs. I began turning on my phone's voice recorder during random conversations. When Brandon asked if I could cover the electric bill this month, I asked why. He said, "Well, you live here too, don't you?" I recorded that. When Vanessa said, "It would be easier if the house were in my name, simpler for taxes." I smiled, nodded, and recorded every word. I had no intention of confronting them yet, but I wasn't sitting still anymore. The silence was over. Angela called me 2 days later with a tone that didn't need words to warn me. I could hear it in the pause before she spoke, in the way she exhaled slowly, choosing every sentence with caution. "I ran the property records," she said, "and something came up." Vanessa had used the address, my house, as collateral for a personal loan from a private lender. Not a bank, not even a credit union. A lender with a name I didn't recognize, operating out of a P.O. box in a shady part of the city. Angela suspected it was part of a predatory loan operation. Vanessa had signed the agreement using the property's address, banking on the assumption that eventually she'd have legal control of the house. The loan had been approved last month, $15,000, already late on the first payment. I sat in stunned silence, my tea untouched in front of me. "And Brandon?" I asked. Angela hesitated again. "There's more." Apparently, Brandon had borrowed money months earlier for a business venture. A friend from college had convinced him to invest in a startup app, promising returns that never came. Now he was buried in debt. The only asset tied to his name, though it technically wasn't, was the house I lived in. My house. The one he told me I was lucky to stay in. Worse still, Angela uncovered a draft of an email between Brandon and a senior care facility, one they had visited secretly. In the message, he asked about availability and costs for long-term assisted living placement for a family member. There was no name listed, but the timing matched exactly with the week I'd overheard Vanessa on the phone saying, "She's not going anywhere. It's stable now." They were planning to put me away, not out of concern, not out of love, but because they were drowning in mistakes and needed me gone to sell the house. That night, I sat in my room with the recorder on my nightstand. The air outside was heavy with summer rain. Upstairs, Vanessa was on the phone again. Too loud this time to close the door. "I'm telling you, she's just sitting around like she owns the place, like she's the queen or something. Honestly, it's exhausting. She doesn't do half as much as she used to, just nags and lurks. Total leech." I pressed record without hesitation. Then came the final crack in my foundation, Liam. The next morning, as I helped him zip up his jacket for school, he looked up at me with wide eyes. "Grandma," he said softly, "why did Mommy say you're the maid?" I smiled at him as if nothing broke inside me. I kissed the top of his head and sent him off with his lunch. Then I closed the door, walked back to my room, and sat on the bed in silence. I was done. There would be no confrontation, no yelling match, no pleas for decency. I didn't want apologies. I wanted freedom. The next day, I met with Angela again. We filed the paperwork to begin the quiet listing of the house. No public sign, no MLS, just a private network of buyers Angela trusted. Within a week, we had interest. Cash offer, fast closing. The house could be gone in less than 30 days. I contacted a moving company and arranged a discreet pickup. No labels, no truck logos. They'd arrive on Vanessa's birthday. Fittingly poetic. Then I drafted a letter. It wasn't bitter, it wasn't angry, it was clean. Just the facts. The ownership, the choices, the silence I had endured. I thanked them for letting me live with Liam, for giving me a chance to say goodbye to motherhood with my eyes open, for teaching me what family should never feel like. I printed it on the same paper I used to write birthday cards, folded it neatly, slipped it into an envelope, and placed it on my nightstand. Next, I called Charlene, the notary friend, and signed over the title of a small storage unit I still owned to my niece in Maine. One of the only family members who still called to ask how I was doing. Then I began packing, not with sorrow, not with fear, but with precision. The irony of the timing wasn't lost on me. Vanessa's birthday party was a full production. White tents in the backyard, a caterer in the kitchen, a jazz trio setting up near the patio. She wore a silk jumpsuit, hair professionally done, laughing into glasses of chilled rosé. The guest list was triple what Liam's had been, and yet again, my name wasn't on the invitation. Perfect. I stayed out of sight most of the afternoon, tucked in my room, watching shadows pass across the wall. The movers had come that morning, early and silent, just as I'd arranged. The majority of my things, photo albums, old cookbooks, jewelry boxes, and Robert's favorite records, were already gone. My room was nearly bare. At 4:17 p.m., I picked up the envelope from my dresser. It was heavier than it looked. Inside were 3 things: the signed closing documents from the house sale, a check made out to me for the full amount, and a letter typed on clean white paper. I walked out of my room and through the hallway like a guest in someone else's life. Laughter echoed from the back patio. I stepped through the sliding glass doors into sunlight and conversation. The music dipped. Heads turned. I kept walking. No one spoke. Vanessa was standing near the cake table, mid-laugh. Brandon's eyes widened when he saw me. I stepped forward, reached the nearest table, and gently placed the envelope in the center. "I won't take much of your time," I said, my voice calm, even. The guests turned toward me, curiosity blooming on their faces. Vanessa tilted her head. "Mom, we're just about to cut the—" "I'm not your mom," I said. "Not anymore." I nodded at the envelope. "That contains the deed to this house, or rather, the former deed. The sale closed yesterday. The buyer will arrive next week. You'll need to vacate by Friday." Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wind hitting water. Brandon stepped forward, face pale. "What are you talking about?" I looked at him. Really looked. My son. My blood. A man who'd watched me fade into a shadow and said nothing. I didn't answer him. I turned to Vanessa. "There's also a letter inside," I continued. "It explains what's happened. It includes a transcript of every transaction from my retirement account and a USB with audio recordings." Vanessa blinked. "You recorded us?" "You recorded yourselves," I said. "I just pressed the button." Her smile cracked like a glass under pressure. I turned to the guests. "To those of you who don't know me, hello, I'm Margaret. I used to live here. They used to call me the Help. But I'm the woman who owned this house. And now I'm the woman who doesn't." I stepped back. No more words. Brandon opened the envelope, fumbling with the papers. Vanessa snatched the USB, stared at it like it might explode. One woman grabbed her purse and quietly stepped away. Another whispered something to her husband, who took his drink and followed. The jazz trio stopped playing. Silence swept through the backyard like a storm. "I did this," I said finally, "because no one should ever be made to feel small in their own home, and because I refuse to be erased." Brandon took a step toward me. "Mom, wait, please, we didn't mean—" I raised my hand, not in anger, but in finality. "I'm not here to argue, I'm here to leave." Then I turned. I walked through the yard, across the grass I used to water, past the flowers I'd planted 2 springs ago. I didn't stop to say goodbye. I didn't flinch at the silence or the stares or the smell of lemon cake rising from the buffet table. At the curb, a black sedan idled quietly. The driver stepped out, opened the door for me. I climbed in, sat down, closed the door, and never looked back. The house, my house, Faded in the side mirror, just another piece of scenery now. For the first time in years, I felt light. The apartment wasn't large, just a 2-bedroom with white walls, worn hardwood floors, and the faint smell of sea salt drifting in through the windows each morning. But it was mine, a second-story unit in a quiet coastal town 2 hours from the city, with neighbors who minded their own business and a cafe downstairs that remembered my name by the second week. I filled it with soft rugs, photos of Robert, and fresh daisies every Friday. The guest room I left mostly empty, just a small bed and a bookshelf, because I liked the idea of space I didn't have to explain to anyone. No schedules, no notes on the fridge, no locked cabinets. The first few weeks felt like standing in the middle of silence so wide it echoed. I walked the beach every morning, letting the tide rush over my ankles like it was baptizing a new version of me. I joined a community of retired women, painters, teachers, nurses like myself, most of whom had stories just as jagged as mine. We met every Tuesday for tea and storytelling. They called it the Second Wind Club. It didn't take long for word to spread. The podcast invitation came from a producer who'd read my blog. The Quiet Exit was a series dedicated to stories of women who left quietly with dignity and purpose and changed their lives. I hesitated at first, but then I remembered how many times I'd felt alone in that house, unseen, erased. If someone like me had spoken up then, maybe I would have left sooner. So I told my story, not with rage or revenge, but with calm precision. I described the birthday party, the bank statements, the envelope, the goodbye. And when the episode aired, something unexpected happened. Emails, dozens, then hundreds. From mothers, grandmothers, even daughters. People who'd felt small, disposable, erased in homes they once built or paid for. People who had been gaslighted, guilted, or ghosted. They called me brave, but I didn't feel brave. I just felt awake. One morning, I received a letter, real paper, handwritten, the return address in familiar scrawl. It was from Liam. Dear Grandma, Mom says I'm not supposed to write to you, but I found your old birthday card in my drawer, and I remembered how you always made me pancakes in the shape of animals. I miss you. I drew a picture of the beach with a bird because I hope you have birds where you are. Love, Liam. He'd included the drawing, a seagull with enormous wings flying over the waves. I cried, not out of pain this time, but gratitude. Because even after everything, that little boy still remembered the woman who loved him first. And somewhere deep down, I believed he'd carry that with him, no matter what version of the truth Vanessa tried to shape around him. I kept his letter on the fridge. Months passed. Seasons changed. The apartment began to feel like a home. I spent my mornings writing. The blog became a small but loyal corner of the internet where older women shared recipes, memories, and confessions. I didn't hold court or give advice. I just told the truth, and that was enough. The final post I wrote took me a week to finish. I rewrote the last paragraph 6 times before settling on this. You can feed them, raise them, even hand them your home, but if they hand you a uniform, walk away. And take the deed with you. I clicked publish and then walked to the beach barefoot, letting the cold sand pull away the last of the weight I used to carry. Later that week, I was invited to speak at a community center, just a room full of folding chairs and gray heads nodding in silent recognition. I told them what I'd learned, that guilt is a poor substitute for respect. That family isn't defined by who you raised, but by who still sees you. That peace isn't owed, it's built, often alone. After the talk, one woman stood up and said, "You gave me permission to leave." I smiled. "You don't need my permission," I said. "You just need your own." And in that room, filled with people who had once believed it was too late to start over, I felt the quiet shift of something powerful taking root. My phone buzzed the next morning. Another message, another voice saying, "Me too." The story traveled, not like wildfire, but like a tide, steady, persistent, reaching further every day. I wasn't viral, I was visible. For the first time in years, I was seen not as a burden, but as a beginning. And that, more than any revenge or reckoning, was enough.